Clint Eastwood and Terence Hill are two names that loom large in the history of Western cinema, though they represent slightly different traditions within the genre. Eastwood became the face of the spaghetti western through Sergio Leone's iconic Dollars Trilogy, A Fistful of Dollars, 1964, For a Few Dollars More, 1965, and The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, 1966, while Hill, often partnered with Bud Spencer, became the international symbol of the lighter, more comedic branch of Italian westerns, particularly in films like They Call Me Trinity, 1970, and Trinity Is Still My Name, 1971. What many fans do not know is that at one point, there was serious discussion about a potential collaboration between Clint Eastwood and Terence Hill that could have led to one of the most unique Western projects ever filmed. The idea of uniting the brooding, silent gunslinger archetype and type embodied by Eastwood with the charming, playful, and often mischievous cowboy persona created by Hill had the potential to redefine the Western genre. The context of the 1960s and 1970s Western boom. The mid to late 1960s and early 1970s were the golden years of international Western cinema. Italian filmmakers led by Sergio Leone had transformed the American Western into something grittier, more violent, and morally ambiguous. Clint Eastwood, who had been little more than a television actor in the United States, suddenly became a global star through Leone's direction. Around the same time, Terence Hill, born Mario Girardi, was rising in Italy as the face of a different kind of Western, one that was less brutal and more playful, blending slapstick comedy with shootouts and frontier adventure. Producers saw an opportunity. What if these two icons of Western cinema, each commanding massive fan bases, came together in a single film? There were whispers of projects that could pair Eastwood's silent intensity with Hill's comic wit. Such a film, insiders speculated, would have the commercial appeal to dominate both European and American markets. The near collaboration that almost happened. The project most often cited in cinema discussions is an early draft concept that circulated in the late 1960s, after Eastwood's Dollars Trilogy success and before Hill became cemented as the Trinity character. It was envisioned as a big-budget Italo-American co-production that would combine Leone's gritty storytelling with lighter comedic elements. The idea was to cast Eastwood as a mysterious, lone gunslinger and Hill as his unlikely partner, an inexperienced yet charming drifter who constantly got into trouble. This dynamic would have played into the classic buddy western formula, predating the success of the Trinity films and even Hollywood hits like Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, 1969. Some reports suggest that producers tried to pitch the collaboration directly to Eastwood, but he was wary of comedic tones diluting his hard-edged image. At that time, Eastwood was carefully building his persona as the ultimate anti-hero, and he feared that pairing with a comedic character might undercut the iconic presence he had just achieved. Terence Hill, on the other hand, was more open to collaboration. Known for his adaptability, Hill was carving out a niche as the smiling gunslinger, a contrast to the brooding archetypes of Eastwood and Franco Nero. A joint project could have expanded his reach to American audiences earlier than the Trinity films eventually did. Why it never materialized? Several factors prevented the collaboration from materializing. First, creative differences were significant. Eastwood, fresh off his career-defining roles with Leone, was determined to pursue projects that deepened his tough, silent image, rather than risk experimenting with comedy. Second, scheduling conflicts played a role. By the early 1970s, Eastwood was shifting toward directing his own films, such as Play Misty for Me, 1971, while Hill was fully immersed in his partnership with Bud Spencer. There were also market considerations. Hollywood studios were cautious about blending the darker style of Eastwood's westerns with the comedic elements that Hill was famous for. The producers feared that such a mix could alienate audiences rather than unite them. In the end, the idea remained just that, an ambitious vision that never reached production. The legacy of what could have been. Even though Clint Eastwood and Terence Hill never worked together, the mere possibility continues to fascinate fans of Western cinema. A collaboration between the two would have symbolized the merging of two worlds, the gritty revisionist Western and the comedic spaghetti western. It might have created a film that balanced Eastwood's icy gravitas with Hill's light-hearted charm, offering audiences a new dimension of the genre. Instead, their careers went separate ways, both monumental in their own right. Eastwood became one of the greatest American filmmakers, transitioning from Western star to Oscar-winning director with films like Unforgiven, 1992, and $1 Million Baby, 2004. Hill, meanwhile, alongside Bud Spencer, left behind a legacy of Western comedies beloved across Europe and Latin America, with the Trinity films achieving cult status. The near collaboration remains a fascinating what-if in the history of cinema. It underscores how delicate the balance of timing, vision, and personality is in filmmaking. While Clint Eastwood and Terence Hill never shared the screen, the idea of their potential partnership continues to ignite the imagination of film enthusiasts, reminding us that cinema history is as much about the films that were never made as it is about those that were.